Hey, it's Ken Dashow. For CEOs, you should know. Now, you probably know me from Q104.3, New York's classic rock, but I love meeting people, and we always talk about on the air, talk about insurance fraud. And it's real, absolutely. And I happen to have with me Frank Sztuk, the chair of the Public Outreach Committee for the New York Alliance Against Insurance Fraud, and he's also the Senior Vice President of Investigative Services at Delta Group. Welcome to iHeart, Frank.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
What an incredible journey. Where did it start? Did you start in law enforcement?
I did. I became a police officer in 1972 at the ripe old age of 18, and was there until 1981. In 1980, I broke my trigger finger playing baseball.
Nice. What position?
I was a catcher.
The tools of ignorance.
Tools of ignorance. Got to be the smartest person on the field,
Yeah,
though.
you should have seen Yogi's hands. He was a friend. Yeah, there was not one straight finger on those hands.
And I didn't want to stay inside because I couldn't shoot anymore. So my brother worked at the Hanover Insurance Company and told me about an opportunity that the industry was starting to build what's called special investigation units. He said, "Why don't you come in and talk to our senior VP, and maybe something can come out of it." Met him for lunch, brought me back to the office, and offered me the job that afternoon, and the rest is history. And I was there until 2017, from 1981.
It's basically detective work, isn't it?
In essence, it is. The difference is that you don't arrest people at the end of the investigation. You either pay their claim or write their policy or mitigate or deny their claim based on fraud. So,
Double Indemnity, one of my favorite movies of all time. Edward G. Robinson is kind of what you were doing, right?
That is absolutely right. And the other movie you should know, Ken, is The Fortune Cookie.
Yes.
was from 1966, which is all about insurance fraud.
It outrages me when there's something about scams that I hate. I hate it on a corporate level, but what hurts worse is when you see people doing it to just the average person, the fake auto accidents, getting innocent people involved, or torching your business or your car. Like you're just so selfish to do that and hurting so many people around you.
Well, the interesting thing about insurance fraud, Ken, and it's something that I've studied, I speak on, is there's a lot of honest people committing fraud.
What?
And there's a lot of honest people committing fraud.
You have to explain that.
Because they don't realize committing insurance fraud is a criminal act. And these are people who would never steal from a business or anything, but they don't correlate insurance fraud to theft. There's a concept, and one of the things that we see in our industry is one of the drivers of fraud is people's ability to get back at the insurance industry. Because why? I mean, let's face it, the insurance industry is probably not the most popular industry in the country. Maybe second only to the IRS. So people have this attitude that, well, I've been paying my insurance rate for years. Hey, what's a little bit of insurance fraud? And the reality of it is, and if you look at the tagline for the New York Alliance Against Insurance Fraud, it's the crime you pay for. And people have to understand that every time somebody commits fraud, it hurts everybody. And not just the people who are paying for insurance. It hurts everybody. And we've attributed a specific dollar amount to those things in the state of New York. So yeah, the whole concept is people they rationalize that it's an okay thing to do.
It makes sense the way you explain it. Yeah. I mean, part of me is so many legitimate medical claims and tests and things get rejected by insurance companies. Yep. And I'm sure, I shouldn't say I'm sure because I believe I don't have the knowledge, but I would bet so many people send in fraudulent claims that's what tips the scales the other way of forcing you to jump through hoop after hoop to prove the viability of an operation or a procedure or something you need.
That's certainly part of it. And I think that in my career, I've been doing this for close to 45 years, fighting insurance fraud. And you would think that I would be a total cynic, but I'm not. I'm really not. I understand why people commit fraud. I obviously don't condone it.
Right.
But when you look at the definition of insurance fraud, it's the abuse of the insurance system for financial gain. Who commits insurance fraud? Individuals, corporations, insurance companies in some cases, agents in some cases. So it really is a large sphere of people who can commit fraud.
Is there a percentage where it's mostly individuals or mostly corporate or mostly this?
Depends on the type of insurance. Okay, if you look at automobile insurance, for instance, most of the fraud that we see on the automobile side is committed by individuals, and if you look at it from a commercial perspective, workers' comp fraud, for instance, the biggest part of work comp fraud is on the part of the unscrupulous employer who's gaming the system. So it depends on the type of insurance that we're talking about.
That's what I was going to ask you. What are the most common types of fraud that you see?
Automobile, for instance, the most common type of automobile insurance fraud is what we call rate evasion.
What is it again? Say that again.
Rate evasion.
Rate evasion.
Okay, that's the situation where somebody who lives in Brooklyn, for instance, will use their cousin's address in New Jersey to get their automobile insurance. All right, because we all know that automobile insurance in New York is very expensive, and New Jersey is expensive too, but it's not as much as, say, the 5 boroughs. So that's a simple form of fraud, but it's probably one of the most common types of fraud we see. And then another form of rate evasion is, people who they misrepresent the amount of miles they drive every year, for instance. Very simple thing, but it's costing the industry money because most policies are based on how much you use your car.
Which makes sense.
Which makes sense. So if somebody's lying on their application about where they live, about how much they drive, or prior accidents, for instance, that's a form of fraud, and that's in automobile. Now we also see what we call staged accidents, which are intended accidents. A great example of that. We all saw it about 4 or 5 months ago on the Belt Parkway, where a woman was driving in the left lane, and she had a dash camera.
Yep, I know exactly what you're saying.
You know the one I'm talking about. And the car pulls in front of her, slams on their brakes, but she stopped, didn't hit the car. Because the rule of thumb is if you hit somebody from the rear, you're at fault. Then you see the car in front. The reverse lights go on, and he smashes into this woman's car at a pretty good clip and causes an accident. Well, thank God this person had their dash cam. With that, people jump out of the car. You see people moving positions in the car. The driver switches to the passenger side. The people walking around are walking around holding their neck, and the guy who was the driver, jumps out, jumps in another car, and takes off. That was a staged accident. Fortunately, they've all been arrested.
Reminds all of us, especially me, I'm ordering a dash cam immediately when we finish this and putting it in my car.
And that's one of the things at the Alliance that we're telling people: protect yourself. Get a dash cam. They're not that expensive, and it really can protect you.
So that's where I was going next. Right? What do you do? Just staying on this type of fraud where an innocent person is sucked into a scheme.
Okay.
What's the best ways to protect yourself?
Well, the first thing that I'm telling people all over the state of New York, Ken, is be aware of your surroundings. Don't tailgate. Tailgating is if I was a scammer and I was a guy who's going to stage an accident, somebody's tailgating me, perfect opportunity. I'm going to watch in my rearview mirror and see when that person gets distracted for a second, and then I'll slam on my brakes. I get hit. Who's at fault? The person who was the car in the rear. But in reality, it was a staged accident. So be aware of your surroundings. If you're involved in an accident, call the police. Don't ever let somebody say, "Oh no, we can handle this without." Always call the police, no matter where you are. Take pictures. Take pictures of the people. Take pictures of the car. And it's really one of the things that we're telling everybody. And again, not to repeat myself, get a dash cam. It really can help
Because
you
it can
avoid.
prove your
Sure,
your case.
absolutely.
Right now, there's so many scams that are just cascading through my phone as we speak.
Yep.
You know, your credit thing is this, your credit is that. Just for me personally, and by the way, it's Ken Dashow from Q104.3. I couldn't find my Amex card. I know it was in the house. I didn't take it out. I lost it. I called Amex. They're sending out another card. I never got the card. And yesterday afternoon, while I was on the air, 3 charges came through for $300, $500, $300 in New Jersey, wherever. I called Amex. I said, I lost my card, but I thought it was in the house. And they said, no, these are on your new card. I said, I never received the new card. And the woman said, they must have intercepted it. We'll send out another card immediately by FedEx. We'll investigate the charges. So it was the first time in my life, Frank, that I didn't even get the card, and they were able to get it.
Yeah, I've had over the last 10 years probably 5 different American Express numbers, because every once in a while I'll get a like you said, an email that says, "Hey, did you make this charge?" No. Okay, we're sending you a new card. It happened yesterday. Now, it was happened yesterday on one of my old cards, and I never bought anything from this
the vendor.
merchant. Yeah. In one of our campaigns a few years ago was on cyber fraud. People have to understand, think before you click, and it's a great way to avoid, being a victim of fraud. Don't open up any attachment from somebody you don't know, because it could very well connect you to the dark web and, ruin your life.
It happens here in iHeartMedia all the time.
Yep.
We get warnings every week. Here's the latest scams. If you're invited to join a Teams meeting, make sure it's from somebody inside. Does it say from iHeartMedia, or is it an external link?
Yep.
Or here's the spreadsheet you asked for. Here's your, there's always a reason. If you're and it's if I'm focused, but now I'm more diligent, because even if you're slightly distracted, oh yeah, I did ask him for that. And you don't look to see that it wasn't the address that you emailed, and it can happen. So, Frank, you've held leadership roles with the Massachusetts Insurance Fraud Bureau, Coalition Against Insurance Fraud, New York Alliance. You chaired the Public Outreach Committee of the New York Alliance for over 2 decades. And so that's next is, can you share how the New York Alliance works with the public, what campaigns, what tools you do to get this out there?
So the New York Alliance was created in 1999. And the main driver for the creation of the Alliance was a New York insurance regulation called Regulation 95. And one of the things in that regulation required insurance companies to advertise about the subject of insurance fraud, the perils of fraud, and the impact of fraud on the citizens of New York. So a very, very enlightened person, a guy by the name of Dennis Jay, who was the executive director of the Coalition Against Insurance Fraud in Washington, D.C., said, here's an opportunity. So he got a number of companies together and created the Alliance. And what the Alliance does is our main function is to advertise to the citizens of the state of New York about the problem of insurance fraud, how to avoid it, how to not be a victim. And in New York, we've got to understand, when you look at the numbers, Ken, the Coalition Against Insurance Fraud did a study going back about 3.5 years ago on the extent of insurance fraud. We used to use an $80 billion number for years. It puts the number now at $308.6 billion a year is the cost of insurance fraud.
Say that again.
$308 billion, $308.6 billion a year is the overall cost of insurance fraud.
That's insane.
It's insane. Think about this. On the train on the way over this morning, I just was Googling, what is, how much in the banking industry, how much fraud is impacting the banking industry? It's about $20 billion a year. And that includes bank robberies, includes, fraud against the bank. If you get caught robbing a bank, you're going to jail. If you get caught committing insurance fraud, there's a good possibility in some cases you're not going to go to jail. I mean, think about it for a minute. Somebody who steals $5 from holding up a gas station, they're going to go to jail for a long time. Commit insurance fraud, unless it's a very aggressive company, you may very well not go to jail. But the good thing about the state of New York is New York has the most active insurance fraud bureau in the country. And I'm here to tell you that if you commit fraud in New York and you're caught, you are going to go into the system.
So New York does better than a lot of other states.
New York does a lot better than a lot of other states.
I'm talking with Frank Sztuk, the chair of the Public Outreach Committee for the New York Alliance Against Insurance Fraud. He's also Senior Vice President of Investigative Services at Delta Group, and this is CEOs You Should Know. Your passion, obviously, if you started as a cop and as a detective, of just righting wrongs, and that's what I always grew up with is, help the next person, don't hurt the next person.
And that's what's driven me all these years, Ken. As I mentioned before, my dad was a cop. He was one of the first cops in my hometown. I became a cop at 18 years old. My oldest brother is a retired police officer. And my whole goal was to help people. Now, the interesting thing, that in close to 10 years I was a cop before I got hurt, I never saw a case of insurance fraud because I didn't know what it was.
Right.
So now one of the things that we've done and I've done over the years is not only educate the citizens of the state of New York, I talk to police academies. I get cops to understand that fraud is not just the insurance company's problem, it's everybody's problem. And to the cops, it's their problem because they're paying for insurance. The interesting thing, when you look at the numbers from when we take that $308.6 billion number and calculate it down to the state of New York, Ken, it impacts every citizen in New York to the tune of about $920 a year. Not just the people buying insurance, everybody. And because there's an impact on the cost of goods and services as well as the cost of insurance. I mean, think about it. Your morning salad before your lunch, that's a little more expensive because of insurance fraud, because that deli that you go to has to buy insurance.
Right.
Their insurance is more expensive because of insurance fraud.
There's the large corporations or even mid-size call it shrinkage, and they understand that that's theft. Yep. And there are drugstores, especially in the COVID era and post-COVID, the Duane Reade in their neighborhood, we just had an open door policy. People would just walk in, take things, and leave. And they didn't get them a security guard. They didn't have wherewithal. Certainly the young man stocking the shelves is not going to go fight somebody. And I sit there and go, this is our neighborhood store. It's been there for a long time, and they closed because I don't know if the company felt it wasn't worth it, but you see it all the time around us.
And again, something that I've spoken to, I've written about is and this is Frank Sztuk talking, Ken, is the decline in social ethics over the last 30 or 40 years.
Absolutely.
People are much more, I'm seeing more fraud now in my career, which is close to 45 years, than I've ever seen before.
That stinks.
It does. But, you asked
Look,
me a
we know
question.
the economics are very tough. The cost of living versus wages has never been more at odds with each other, and that's got to be a factor.
Sure.
I'm sure COVID was a factor. But still in all, look at the damage it's doing.
I mean, when you think about it, it's every time someone commits fraud, it affects everybody. You look at our Alliance campaign for this year is don't get burned by insurance fraud. Very simple. Our TV and radio ads are all around, don't be a victim. If you see something, say something. We recommend if people see fraud occurring, a neighbor, a business, call the Alliance. 844-FRAUD-NY. Call us and report it to us. You can do it anonymously, and we'll report it to the state of New York. Or you can go on our website at fraudny.com. Report it to us. We'll take care of it. We'll get it reported to the state of New York. And I guarantee you that if it is an actual fraudulent occurrence, it will be addressed by the Fraud Bureau in the state of New York.
Frank Sztuk, give me that number again.
844-FRAUD-NY.
And what's the website?
fraudny.com.
So, guys, why doesn't everybody, if you take a minute now, just in your phone, just type in or save it, speak into it, fraudny.com. Because the thing is that most people, I would guess, if you see something, say something, but you don't want to get involved.
Right.
It's your neighbor. It's the guy across the street. You see that he's actually using his place as a place of business or what,
Yep.
but you don't want to be the bad neighbor. What if there's blowback? If you can do it anonymously and you can just go to fraudny.com and give the information without it, or just call.
Yep.
You don't have to, they don't ask you for your name.
Nope.
And you look. So that's a huge tool to me, because that's next. If it's worse than it's ever been, are you beaten down by that? Do you see hope? Is there a way that we can turn
I do
the tide?
see hope, and I think that, I mean, it's a lot of it's tied to the economy. If as the economy strengthens, and we all hope it does, I think there's less of a people will maybe not be so what's the word I want? Not be so affected to go and commit insurance fraud. And I saw on the information y'all sent me. Do I have hope for the future? Absolutely. I have hope for the future that people will understand from our ad campaigns and the work that we do in New York that fraud is the crime you pay for, and that it's not something that we have to put up with anymore. Tell us about it.
To me, I've heard that phrase. Those insurance companies, they got plenty of money. Come on, they got plenty of money. Well, they do have plenty of money, but there's also a lot of money going out. And the way I look at it is, the fruit cart on my corner. If the guy would go to the bathroom, I could take a banana, I could take fruit, and he would never know it. But why would I do it?
It's stealing.
It's stealing.
Yeah.
So whether you're stealing from the poor guy in the corner or you're stealing from a major insurance company, guess what? It's called stealing.
Yeah. And again, go back to one of the comments I made earlier, is that people have to understand that it's not a cool thing to do anymore. That, and when I talk about that, quote, honest person who's committing fraud, people have to understand that every time somebody lies on their application for insurance or commits a little bit of insurance fraud, it hurts everybody. $920 a year for every person in the state, that's a lot of money.
Do you think we can knock that down if we were all more proactive?
I believe we can, sure.
So
report it to us.
Frank Sztuk, chair of the Public Outreach Committee for the New York Alliance Against Insurance Fraud. What's next for you, or do you want to just keep rolling with this?
People ask me all the time. I speak all over the country on fraud. Oh, actually, I've done it internationally as well. And people say, Frank, when are you going to stop? When I stop having fun. And what I mean by that is every time I go out and do a presentation, I know that people are hearing the message. And, I've been doing this for a long time. I've probably done over 3,000 presentations on insurance fraud, and people listen. And like with our campaign starts in May and it's ending now in the state of New York, our ad campaign. Every year, the number of calls we get goes up during that period. The number of calls that the State Fraud Bureau gets goes up during that period, because people understand that, why do I have to pay for this?
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to.
Once again, the number 844-FRAUD-NY, 844-FRAUD-NY, or just go to fraudny.com. See something, say something. It's what the police tell us about being on the subway stations. It's what I do at the airports. And this is what we have to do to take care of ourselves.
Yeah. And don't get burned by insurance fraud.
Frank Sztuk, thanks so much for coming on. CEOs You Should Know at iHeartMedia. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much to you and iHeart for letting us tell our story.
My pleasure.